Yate She'eya Adrian Morris Yinche. Tanabitni Sho Kisani Bashis Chin Techini Dashiche Ushash Dashanale. Hello, my name is Adrian Morris. My clans are Sleepy Rock, born for Laguna Pueblo. My grandfather's clans are Red Running into Water, and my other grandfather's clans are Sun Clan of Laguna Pueblo. I'm half Navajo and half Laguna Pueblo. I originally come from Nakai Batot, New Mexico, which is just north of Gallup, New Mexico. I've been focusing on painting and printmaking for the past 5 years. Those are my primary mediums. So, yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been creating art?
I've been creating art, I would say, since a child on the res. I never really thought of it as art, but now that I'm older and can reflect on certain experiences, I can remember like drawing on sidewalks with sandstone rocks, like different colored rocks that my cousins and I would pick up and just see what color they would make on the sidewalk. So it was like chalk, and we would also like draw on rocks and stuff too. So I would say those were some of my earliest experiences as an artist.
Who has had the biggest impact on your work, and why would you say that?
The biggest impact on my work, I would say, I would say some of the biggest impact that I've had as a Native artist in recognizing myself as a Native artist would be like unknown potters and unknown people who made art that I would say was on like pottery sherds or places that I would see growing up, and seeing these little fragments of painted pigment across clay sort of always made me wonder like what creative process went into making this, and the act of creating and putting like a pen to paper, a brush to clay, brush to canvas. Like it was that notion of making something in what a lot of people would have considered like a world of nothing on the res. And it was like a history museum going behind my grandma's house and looking at things and finding things and just feeling connected to that, and finding ways in like the academic world to connect to what like pottery meant, or what different things meant. So I would say that's one influence, but the biggest like individual influence on my art would have been my uncle and cousins who when I grew up on the res, kind of offered some little creative outlet. They themselves never really practiced it, or were very diligent in seeing themselves as artists, but I would say that they kind of planted the seeds for me to grow from there and see what art was about, see what see what art was like off the res, because growing up, my grandmother had an old encyclopedia set, and I remember always looking at it, looking through it, and I remember the A book, and when I came to this art section, I saw a painting by Jean Moreau, and just the painting, I think it's called The Landscape, or The Hare's Dream, but it was so surreal and just kind of prompted me to wonder how and why that was art, and it sort of began this path that I've found myself on. So it's more than just one person, but I would say that when I sit down and look and reflect, a lot of things have influenced my creativity. So
are there any mentors that really stand out for you besides the stories you've told us in terms of your work now?
Well, right now I'm searching for like mentors and people outside of like more formally structured ways of learning. So learning directly from craftspeople, craft makers, like artists, talking to them. I did work with a portrait painter in learning about oil painting and also life drawing, and working from life. I would say that has been a big influence in my art, being able to take something and apply it to an sort of everyday setting, and connect with the power of creating from life. Because it's so easy now to take a picture of something and then draw from it later, you know. You can capture something with a camera, but I don't feel like most of the times you actually kind of get to an essence of creating from like a picture, unless you're actually there and experiencing it. There's just, for me personally, a lot more embodied in the act of creation that goes into those processes. So yeah, I would say my friend Russ Raytheon, who was the painter, and outside of that, a mentor would be one of my uncles who's since passed, but he always encouraged me to kind of leave the res, to go pursue things, and to always come back, and remember where I was from. But it was his sort of push to be like, hey, what are you doing here on the res? Like, you should go out and make something of yourself, like do something, see the world, like bring something back that like family members and your community can see and learn from. So I would say those two influences influence my art now. And my art right now is it's pretty transitional. I'm focusing on printmaking and painting, but I'm trying to just see where to take it next.
Okay. And turning the tables, have you had experience mentoring other people, and how has that impacted your work?
Experiencing mentoring. A little bit, not extensively. I work with nonprofits in kind of creating community engagement with, I used to work in a clay studio that worked with connecting with community people using a clay medium, and it was cool to introduce people to a medium that they may have never had experience with or felt intimidated by. Because I know when I was kind of starting out and being exposed to the art world, there was intimidation in even asking like an artist, how did they do that, or what did you use, like what material. Like I remember the first time I went into an art store being both in shock and awe of like what you could use to create, but also the overwhelming sensation of like, oh, like I could use all of this, or I don't know. But one of the things I've really tried to implement is simplicity in keeping it cozy, I guess, in that sense. And I also work with Raíces Taller. It's a nonprofit gallery here in Tucson, Arizona, and we're open to the community. We always try and get new young folks in, so we're trying to recruit young people to get their perspective on art, get their perspective on things that are happening in Tucson and also in the world. So that, and growing up, I never really had mentors for art specifically, so when I go home, I always try and bring a little bit to my nieces and my nephews, and it's good to see them exposed to that, because I don't know, on the res there isn't too much like art education, art exposure, and for me in my family, it's like I'm mentoring them and teaching them about what art is while I'm learning and teaching myself about what art is too. So I'm kind of like on the forefront of letting them know what's what with that, because for my family it's new territory. I don't think they've really ever had or been used to like an unconventional lifestyle as an artist. So There's a lot of growing room.
So do you consider yourself an artist, a craftsman, or a native artist? And is there a difference in how you think about your work with the different labels of artist, craftsman, or native artist?
I see myself as Adrian, as Admo. It's what I sign my art with, what a lot of my art friends know me as. And I think that putting labels on yourself it helps some people get an idea of who you are and what you are, but I don't feel like it always encompasses it. There's always way more to who a person is than just being an artist. But I do gravitate more towards the label like artist or creative than I do like crafts or specifically a native artist. I'm not really drawn to the label native artist because I don't really want to be too kind of cornered into my creativity, although I value and respect my traditions and the cultures of Native people. I also feel that there needs to be room for growth in a direction that maybe takes Native art away from what's labeled Native art. So that's where I kind of find myself into the area of just artist or creative.
So what do you hope to accomplish with your art, or what message do you hope your art gives?
For me, a lot of my art is connected to like my own sort of personal experiences or personal feelings. So the mission that I try and create with my art right now is a lot of like self-healing. So and sort of like sticks to a concept of like Navajo philosophy of Hojong. So putting beauty in the world, I would say that's where my art is now. And not to say that sometimes when you put beauty out there, it's not always going to be perceived as beauty, but I think that in sticking with that sort of philosophy, you get to a truth that I wouldn't really be able to get at outside of that Hojong. So my mission for art is always changing, but I feel like that is one of the constants, that sense of beauty or creation that helps me heal myself, and therefore like someone looks at a painting or looks at a print and gets drawn to it, like maybe it provides something that like some relief that I was able to express and get at through my working through that process that they enjoy. Because I feel that through my own personal experiences and growth, that a lot of light and a lot of beauty can come out of a lot of darkness and a lot of like struggle and challenges. So I feel like that is where my art is taking me. So.